Awakened by the steady hum of machinery and a sense of movement, I found myself sitting on the steps of a descending escalator, having no idea how I'd gotten there from the tunnel. It was as if I'd passed out in the tunnel and someone had moved me to the escalator without waking me. It was a long way to the bottom, and I was able to see a lot of my surroundings on the way down. I was in a massive industrial-looking building of some kind, as the walls, floor, and ceiling were completely made of concrete. Millions of pipes in every size ran everywhere. Lamps were suspended from the high ceiling by long cords. It was merely functional and not meant to be attractive or inviting. As I stepped off the escalator and looked around a bit, I was able to get my bearings and realized that I recognized the place. I was in the South Ashfield subway station, but how in the world did I manage to get there from my apartment simply by going through the hole in the wall? It'd be geographically impossible even if my apartment wasn't on the 3rd floor. Yet there I was. When I entered the hole, I was so glad to finally be getting out of my apartment that I didn't even care where I'd end up or how. I turned and looked up the still-moving escalator, my eyes following it to the top. It only went downward, and the top was so high that it'd be impossible to reach. There was no going back, not that there was any real reason to. Ahead of me was a hallway, so I shrugged and started to make my way down. It wasn't exactly bare, but not decorative either. The walls were lined with pipes, valves, and other metal structures. The lighting was sparse. Every 50 feet or so, I'd pass by a bright fluorescent light on the ceiling, but between the lights it was fairly dark as they didn't cover very large areas. It was like walking along a series of spotlights. They also picked up the dust in the air, which there was a lot of, giving an eerie, hazy effect. As I approached the end of the hall, I was surprised to see someone else there. I was even more surprised when I realized that she was the same woman I had seen through the window earlier. She had light golden brown skin and appeared to be of Latin descent. She wore a colorful, not to mention revealing, outfit with her dark hair swept up and back and expensive-looking jewelry. She turned around as I approached, and when she looked at me, her eyes widened in what can only be described as a lustful look. God knows why. I hadn't shaved or changed my clothes in days, but maybe she was into that. "Who are you?" she said, her mouth widening into a seductive smile. "What's your name?" "Henry," I said, feeling uncomfortable as I leaned against a wall. "And you?" "This is my dream, and you don't even know my name." There were so many things wrong with that sentence I wouldn't know where to start. "It's Cynthia," she said finally. I could already tell that she wasn't my type, but she was very attractive and carried herself in a way that was graceful yet sassy, which seemed to make up for the less than tasteful way she dressed. Still, I blinked several times, unable to get past what she said. "Your dream." "That's right. This is just a dream, and a really terrible one, too. I hope I wake up soon." Suddenly she seemed vulnerable, and despite how dire my own situation was, I found myself feeling a bit sorry for her. "So you think this is a dream, huh? Well, if it's not a dream, what is it?" I didn't know how to argue with that. How else would one explain all that had happened? Sure, maybe this and the last 5 days were just one big long nightmare, and I'd been safe in bed all this time. How nice that would be. And yet, with as much as I'd been questioning reality lately, I wasn't sure if I could buy the dream theory. I turned away from her for a moment to consider this without distraction. "Anyway," my new friend continued, indifferent to the fact that I had other things on my mind, "I want to get out of here, but I can't find the exit." I was hearing her, but only vaguely. I was too busy contemplating my own situation and, assuming for the moment that it wasn't a dream, whether or not I would be able to get out of it and how. I looked down the dark hallway, shaking my head. Despair was already beginning to set in. "Say," Cynthia went on. We were already standing fairly close together, but I could tell by the sound of her voice and footsteps that she was moving closer as she spoke. Suddenly she had my full attention as she grabbed my shoulder and spun me back around so I was facing her again. She was so close now that I could smell her perfume. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little intoxicating. Caught completely off guard, I just froze, forgetting where I was and what I'd been thinking about. "Will you help me find it?" She had her hands on my shoulder, sliding them down to my chest and then back up again. "I'm kinda scared all alone." I was quite a bit taller than her, and with her standing so close, I had to look down to make eye contact. When I did, I couldn't help but notice how much cleavage her low-cut top revealed, not to mention the black lacy edges of the bra she wore underneath. I swallowed hard and tried to avert my eyes as I felt my face flush. She leaned in even closer, practically pushing herself against me. "I'll do a special favor for you later," she said as she ran the tip of her finger over my lower lip and then upper lip in a continuing motion. A shiver ran through me, and it was all I could do to keep my lower lip from quivering. Now, under normal circumstances, I would have turned and walked away before she had gotten that far. I'm normally not too crazy about women who assume that because I'm quiet I must be naive and easily taken advantage of. I knew I was being manipulated, but I didn't care. She was the first human being I'd seen in nearly a week, and her intimate touching did things to me that I am not proud of. In the heat of the moment, I found my hands reaching toward her of their own volition. It was all so surreal that by now I too was beginning to question whether or not it was really happening. She pulled away quickly with a teasing smile. "It's just a dream, so I might as well have some fun," she said as she turned and sauntered away. I took a deep breath and composed myself as I tried to get my heart rate to slow down. Now that I was back to thinking with the right head, I was relieved that she was further away. Things were complicated enough without being tempted to do something I might regret later. I caught up with Cynthia, and once I did, she hung back a bit and let me take the lead. But we didn't walk very far before she started to really lag behind. I was about to ask if she was okay when I found her doubled over. "Wait a minute. I think I'm gonna puke." And with that, she stumbled into a nearby ladies' restroom, hands clasped over her mouth. I leaned against the wall opposite the door and waited patiently. After she had been in there for quite a while, I was beginning to wonder if she was okay. I saw the door being slowly pushed open from the inside. I expected to see Cynthia appear, hopefully feeling better. Instead, I saw something else. From inside the restroom, an animal of some kind emerged. It was dog-like with a cylindrical tongue that was long enough to drag along the floor as the creature walked. It had no eyes that I could see, and its skin was rotted to the point where it was greenish and patches of it were missing completely. I expected it to come after me, but instead it gave out an ear-splitting squeal before collapsing to the floor dead. Immediately, 2 other dog creatures appeared and began sniffing at their fallen comrade. I noticed that their snouts were rat-like. As the nose wiggled, it caused the upper lip to pull back, exposing gums and sharp teeth. What in the world were these things? Suddenly, their tongues shot from their mouths, latched onto the carcass, and they began feeding on the corpse. A hollow slurping sound seemed to indicate that they were using their tongues as straws. All this time, I could only stand frozen with my hand clasped over my mouth, overwhelmed by the hideous sight I was witnessing and the stench of rotting meat that these creatures emitted. Once they were done, they began sniffing the air and finally noticed my presence. Realizing this helped to snap me out of the trance I was in. I nearly made up my mind to run until I remembered that Cynthia was in the restroom. It was unlikely that she was alive, with these 3 dog-like monsters in there as well, but I wasn't ready to believe that she was dead until I saw the body with my own eyes. If she was alive, I'd have to help her, and to get to her, I'd have to bite the bullet and kill these creatures. One was already coming at me. I braced myself and swung the lead pipe, connecting it with the side of the monster's head. It reeled but didn't go down. I swung and struck its head once again, this time bringing a loud crack. The creature bellowed and fell over, but was already attempting to get back up. I swung the pipe vertically, and again the monster went down, but this time it began twitching and making strange sounds as it struggled. I brought the pipe down on its head again, and the creature made one final screech before falling silent. I barely had time to remember that there was a second dog when suddenly my ankle was grabbed from behind by what felt like a vice and pulled out from under me. I screamed and fell to the floor ungracefully. I looked behind to find the second dog biting my ankle while whipping its head back and forth, doing its best to maul me and drag me away at the same time. I grit my teeth, ignored the pain as best I could, and focused on accuracy as I pulled back my other foot and kicked the dog creature in the head as hard as I could, causing it to reel back with a squeal. During the few seconds it took to recover, I was able to get back on my feet. The dog shook its head and came at me again. By now I had wound up, and when the creature was in range, I swung the pipe as hard as I could. It was almost like swinging a baseball bat, but in a more downward arc that was so forceful it nearly threw me off balance. The dog roared in pain, sounding more like a big cat than a dog, as it was knocked across the hall. As it lay on the floor stunned, I delivered the final blow, just as I had done with the first one. I took a moment to catch my breath and give my heart a chance to slow down. I had never killed a living thing before, if those undead-looking creatures could really be called alive, but I was both impressed and disturbed by how easy it was. I had also come out of it relatively unscathed. My ankle hurt, but my boot had protected it from getting seriously injured, plus I could walk on it, so it was good enough. I didn't live through 5 days of confinement and then finally escape only to be ripped apart by these creatures. The second I recalled being alone, I suddenly remembered Cynthia and where she had gone. I ran into the bathroom to look for her. I called her name but received no response. I went around to the corner to where the stalls were. They were all open and there was no blood or any evidence of Cynthia whatsoever. But even stranger than that was what I saw on the wall adjacent to the stalls. Another hole. This hole was much bigger and rounder than the one in my bathroom. It also had decorative markings and glyphs drawn around it in a ring shape, with an eye at the very top. Perhaps Cynthia had gone through this hole. Without hesitating, I crawled into the hole myself, where I was quickly enveloped in darkness.